Any Germans here?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, because I sometimes struggle with the British sense of humor, but Germans, as you all know, are very, very popular for the sense of humor. So that's why I didn't want to talk about digital out of home, because I don't know that much about it, but what us as a company, or what we are more concerned about, is actually out of home in a digital world. And I think our view on the business has changed a lot since we've left our role as a pure out-of-home player. So our company was founded back in the late 80s. And for, I would say about 20, 25 years, we've been doing nothing but out-of-home business. And then back in 2012, we started acquiring online companies, so ad exchanges, RTB platforms, publishers. We acquired the biggest website, the biggest portal in Germany, T-Online, which is on the one hand an email provider, but also general interest publisher. We went into e-commerce businesses, and since roughly 9 months, we are also investing in dialogue marketing companies, so CRM businesses, both tech-oriented as well as traditional call center businesses and door-to-door sales. So we are quite a diversified company. But I think working in different parts of the industry has helped us to get a better understanding of out-of-home instead of just inside out. When you look at our business today, and I think that's quite interesting, we've probably tripled the revenues. Our profits went up by 400 million. And if you look at the mix, out-of-home, meanwhile, is only roughly 40% of the company. 5 years ago, it was 96% of the company. And our headcount went from 1,700 to 14,000. So the profile of the company has changed a lot. And we've acquired a new company every 15 or 16 days in the last 5 years. So all you hear about integration, post-merger integration, how quickly can you change companies, it's all bullocks. You can do it by far faster. I forgot to say that Grafenau is the Milton Keynes of Bavaria. So a lot of concrete cows there. In case you're interested in visiting the German Milton Keynes, go to Grafenau. It's just a side aspect. So the company has changed a lot. And of course, we've moved away from the core competencies of the company profile. Yeah, because running 8,000 call center agents versus employing 150 journalists doing the publishing work for the biggest German portal versus out-of-home business are very, very different businesses. Yeah, but anyway, I think what we've learned is that out-of-home is not the only media in this world. And what we learned, I would say in 2 stages, is that through digitization, out-of-home, get a lot of connections with digital content businesses. And that's where we felt it makes sense to invest in online advertising and online publishing, just to better understand how those 2 media work together. And we've also learned, especially through Google, Facebook, and Amazon, that more and more clients move their marketing investments in the lower end of the funnel, where it's closer to sales conversion. That's why we felt, okay, buying Google, buying Amazon is probably a little bit too expensive for us at the moment. But we can go into more traditional parts of the business and understand how our clients use that. So anyone from WPP here in the room? So I can talk openly about WPP, because I spent there 13, 14 years of my life. And before I left, there started discussions around horizontality. You might have heard about that, integrating different horizontal pieces of business. Yeah, that's horizontally integrated. Yeah? We go to advertisers, sell them location-based advertising, go into digital content, down to chat services on the websites, cost per order deals, email marketing, call center solutions. So we try to rather focus on our customer needs instead of just selling the kind of product that we have. So at the end of the day, we don't focus on digitization per se. We focus on sustainable, profitable growth. And that's an important aspect. Just doing digital stuff because it's digital doesn't really make sense. And if you digitize a shitty site, yeah, it's a shitty digital site, but it really hasn't improved the quality of what's available out there in the market. And I think nowadays you need to be very careful with what you do in the digital space, because it can change quickly your own market position if you're going in the wrong directions. And the reason for that is quite obvious. I think mankind always tried to overcome space and time. I think that's somehow in our DNA. So many years ago we invented the wheel, carriages. I think steam engine was invented here, and then we started to fly just to overcome space. It's more difficult to overcome time, but you can do it with information and communication. So letter, press, to radio, and the World Wide Web, I think all those things help to overcome space and time. But in this century, we've somehow come to the ultimate point, because through the iPhone in 2007, and also virtual reality, I think that's Oculus Rift from Facebook, everything is available everywhere at any time. And that has changed the overall landscape, I think, in media, because the old rules are no longer valid. In almost all areas, you have by far more supply than demand. And that's why you need to be very careful as an out-of-home media owner when you digitize your inventory, if you really want to have more inventory out there, or if you just cannibalize existing revenues, or if you make even more commodity out of your existing business. So having a lot of different advertisers at one location is good if you make more money and can refinance the CapEx. But if you don't make more money, but spend more CapEx, it doesn't really help. And advertisers are not happy if they share the same ad space with 10, 15, 20 more advertisers. So digitization, for the good and for the bad, has a lot of different, or has impact in many areas of the business, and it can not only be positive. And that's what we've seen, and that is one of the reasons why we try to get closer and closer to our clients and integrate the different businesses that we have in our offering to clients, is that we've learned that the buyer dominates and not the seller. So we've seen that, I think, on the B2C businesses. Consumer is nowadays the boss. And you also see it on the B2B side. If you know the best solution in the market, you're no longer interested in the second best solution. And that is also what has changed through digitization. You have accelerated monopolies. I think gaffernomics is just one aspect of that. You have transparent and shorter value chains. I think that is one of the reasons why big agency networks get more and more under pressure. And you have global scalability of many things. That's why a lot of US companies, a lot of tech-based US companies are very successful, because it's quite easy to transport different products on a digital platform called Internet into all countries around the world without hiring a lot of people. And I think the ultimate picture is then when you go into a little bit, mature areas that are fully digitized, like e-books. 93% of the US e-book business is really, meanwhile, with Amazon. 92% of the European and also the German search businesses with Google. And you can go through all those areas. US e-commerce sales, 30% with Amazon. In Germany, it's already 53%. So the question is on the long run, and that's the question that we ask ourselves every day: what's left if those monster companies get bigger and bigger? So what are the areas where you can develop sustainable and profitable business? And it's not always necessarily digital. That's what you find, because once it's digital, it's easier for those guys to get in. It's also easier for a lot of rather tech-oriented intermediates to get in. So I would recommend to everyone always to be careful what you do with digitization. Sometimes you cannot stop it, but you need to know where you're going. And I think a lot of companies hire a CDO and do something about it without really knowing what their final and ultimate goal is. So what we feel is that if there is too much supply of everything and the buyer dominates, then at the end of the day, consumer and customer centricity wins. And that was the key reason for us to go into different media categories or media channels, just to be closer to our clients, get a better understanding of what they really need, and then package and bundle and individualize it to them to be more successful, because they are more successful with more individualized communication. And I think another important aspect is, and that's also what we've learned from Google and Facebook, there is not only one advertising market, there is at least two different markets. The one is more focusing on small and mid-sized enterprises. We call it SMB in Germany. I think in the UK you call it SME. And the national ad market. And out-of-home has, I think, great perspectives and opportunities, also through digital products on the SME side. And I think too often we are just concentrated on the big clients and the big budgets. But if you're willing and able to pick up all the small amounts of money, it can be an even more profitable and more interesting business for all players in the market. So meanwhile, 30% of our total revenues come from the SME business. And in out-of-home, it's already 54% this year. So more than half of the revenues come from regional clients that work directly with us and from really small customers. So the budget ranges between 5,000 euros a year up to 200, 250,000. And in the digital, in the online content area, it's roughly 20% that goes into online, and on the national level, it's roughly 30%. So at the moment, our existing business grows by roughly 8 or 9%, and the growth is mainly coming from that SME area. And there, the growth of the really small customers is actually driving our revenues. It's not so much the bigger clients, it's really the small ones who are shifting money away from print, but no one is actually coming to them and helping them. And do-it-yourself products from Google and Facebook are not always the solutions for SMEs who have other work to do than marketing. So we've built over the last 5 years roughly 850,000 is the goal for 2020, but 850 local salespeople who visit those SMEs. It was something we started back 5 or 6 years when everyone told us, well, it's very expensive to afford that. You'll have to invest in the first 2 or 3 years, and it will take a while. But when we see at the shifts in the ad market overall, and how Google and Facebook, and meanwhile also Amazon, are taking large chunks of the budget out of the market, we're quite happy that we took that decision. And another important aspect is that while that business is still very out-of-home heavy and driven by out-of-home, we're able to package more and more digital and dialogue marketing products in there. So ideally, an SME gets their website from us. It's SEO optimized by us. There is a marketing landing page with a telephone number where we help them collecting the leads through a call center. We convert it into dates for their salespeople and support it with signage media from out-of-home. On the national side, out-of-home is probably the same size as digital and dialogue marketing. So the mix is very different per category and industry. So we come to clients where dialogue or direct media are 80% of their spend with us, and then out-of-home and online come on top. And there are other advertisers who spend 80% in the traditional media and just do a little bit of add-on business through chat services on their website that are managed by us. So the mix is very different, but in all cases, we have better access to clients of all sizes. And meanwhile, when we look at the total size of our business, 52% of our revenues come from direct advertiser relationships, not going through agencies or other intermediates. So that's at the end of the pitch, because we've realized 4 or 5 years ago that Google and Facebook are doing the same. They're making global deals with a global CMO of brand XYZ, and then it goes down on a market level. And before the local media agency or a local media owner is able to work with a marketing director to get a fair share of the budget, a fifth, a quarter, meanwhile a third is already gone to those global companies. And that was one of the reasons for us to get closer to the clients, but then we realized we need to have more in our offering than just out-of-home. So what does it mean for digital out-of-home, or how do we see it? And I think before the lunch break there was a presentation from Clear Channel that already highlighted that every European market has a very different challenge on digital out-of-home. Regulation is different. I think also the regional structure of the countries is very different. So I think London is of fundamental importance for the UK. In Germany, I think we don't have any city like that. Probably the top 6, 7 cities together don't have the impact on Germany as London has on the UK. That's why it's in Germany, advertisers spread the money in a completely different way than in the UK or even in France, where still a big chunk of the money goes to Paris. Interesting enough, 10 years ago, the share of out-of-home in the total media mix was only 3%. Meanwhile, end of 2017, we get close to 7%, so we're catching up with the levels that you have, for instance, in the UK or in countries like Switzerland or Austria or also France. So in many ways, we're a belated nation here, but we also had a very fragmented market for many decades, and the consolidation was rather late. So it took until 2005 or 2006 until the market was more or less consolidated, and there were companies like us or Deco or one or two others who were willing to invest in the quality of the medium, invest in digital screens, more backlit products, and so on. Before that, the market was just by far too fragmented. And what helps us as a company is that it's not only that we have different product categories, but we are also almost unsubstitutable. So in the out-of-home business, last year we've probably received 58% of the revenues in the total out-of-home market. So that makes it easier for us to drive developments in the market. And I agree with a couple of other presentations who talked about collaborations and the need to cooperate between agencies, between media owners, also media owners of different media silos working together for clients. I think all of that is right, but it always takes time, and it's complicated to make compromises. So we prefer accelerating things, and that's where we've learned we probably need to buy more businesses to physically control it and then coordinate it internally. That makes it faster and easier for clients. If the client has the choice to press one button with Google or to talk to a joint industry committee of 30 players who have more or less the same opinion, we all know what he will do. He'll press the Google button. I think that's part of the challenge that we face, that those companies have so convenient performance solutions while the rest of the market tries to organize themselves, and it's just not fast enough to catch up. I think that's a little bit the way we see the out-of-home market, again, more out of client or customer's perspective. I think most of the clients differentiate between broadcasting and narrowcasting or target group specific media. And they differentiate in out-of-home between indoor and outdoor, because indoor, well, driven by regulation, you're allowed to do moving pictures and video advertising. Outdoor, you're just allowed to use stills in Germany. So on the top left, what we call public video is actually video advertising on public screens, which is, from a client's perspective and the way we sell in packages, a natural element of all-screen video strategy. So you have still television, but a linear television is going backwards, so you add a little bit of pay TV. You have then online video advertising, you have YouTube, and you meanwhile also have digital out-of-home, but labeled as public video. Through the mobile device, people have learned that mobile video also has a different format than the television. That makes it easier for us to sell specific formats of public video. And that market has a size of roughly 110 million euros, and the total digital out-of-home market in Germany is, I would say, around 12% of the total out-of-home market, compared to the roughly 50, I think, that you meanwhile have in the UK, but very much driven by the decentralized structure of Germany. If you want to digitize a site, you need to make sure that you make enough money. If you want to make enough money, you need to make sure that there is enough footfall around, enough coverage. And there are unfortunately, not that many locations in Germany. If there are any, they are rather indoor than anywhere else. But nevertheless, we also have, meanwhile, roadside screens, digital roadside screens. In total in the market, 650. Actually, it's digitized versions of scrollers, mega lights, or traditional billboards in top locations. And then we have what we call rather point of sale or digital signage. Interesting enough, 150,000 screens, so quite a lot, but only 20 million revenues if you exclude what we call WKZ. So Werbekosten Zuschuss is subsidized by listing fees that you pay to the owner of the point of sale. So instead of paying him cash, you advertise on a screen without any proper value. But interesting, you can make 20 million with 650 screens in Germany or 20 million with 115,000. So very different market, but it's also a different functionality for the advertiser. Again, when you look at our market share, and that makes it a little bit easier for us, I think 90-something% of the public video market are with us, because we bought the Deutsche Eisenbahnreklame, it's the TfL, but across the whole country, including the national railway. So all the stations are, I think, owned and operated by us until I retire. So it's a comfortable situation. 95 out of the top 100 shopping malls in Germany are owned by Otto Group. It's a big retailer, and we have a company together with them who's marketing and selling that inventory, which also puts us in a quite good position. And I think we have long-term contracts with 9 out of the 10 public transportation systems, the biggest ones in the top 10 cities in Germany. So that helped us to rebrand the name of that category from digital out-of-home to public video, and then just take the time and sell it into the market. And I think that was only possible because we were owning more or less the category. If it would have been necessary to align with I don't know how many other players, it would have been very difficult just to change the perception of a specific digital out-of-home category and push it also pricing-wise into the video CPMs of television or online video instead of the lower traditional billboard CPMs where you traditionally came from. Then you have those roadside screens. It's actually business driven by Deco and us, because we have roughly, I think, 80% of the roadside market out there. So we digitize our best locations. And at the moment, that's the 2 key players in Germany who try to push digital products that are similar to, well, what you have in the UK probably since 7-8 years. Also, the discussions with municipalities and the regulation in Germany is tougher, I think, than in the UK. And then there is this large digital signage market, point of sale market with 115,000 screens. We just entered that market last year, and revenues are still small, but we felt there are probably more opportunities. But before us, there were 100 players, completely fragmented market, so very difficult to improve the quality of the products, the perception in the market, if it's owned by too many media companies. And we don't do any wild things, but we constantly improve digital inventory. So those info screens, cross-track projections, or I think very specific product in Germany in public transportation systems. We increased the inventory there. That's the traditional public video product in stations. We increase shopping malls, also have the same format, very close to mobile video. And we invest a lot into, opening up the category also for programmatic advertising. But again, the backbone of all we do is, at the end of the day, location. I think if programmatic or ad-serving solutions open up budgets that come rather from the online area, and it makes it easier for people who think in online and digital budgets to also book our products, because it's in the same technological ecosystem, then it makes sense for us. Just doing the same business that we did before in loops, switching it to programmatic just doesn't make any sense if you more or less own the category. So I think technology and also data makes sense if you increase the revenue and if you open up revenue sources that historically have been in other media categories, but it doesn't make sense just to digitize what you already have. And that's something what we've seen in many countries, that media owners digitize inventory and try to open it up for better yield management, programmatic, and then they end up in the same mess as the online business, with hundreds of intermediates, the one taking a tech fee, the other one a data fee. Not everything is fully disclosed, low quality inventory sold at higher prices, arbitrage models. Not sure if that really helps our business. And that's why I think digitization can unlock opportunities, but it can also create ultimate chaos if you don't be careful with what you do in that area. in general, opening up that category for more digital thinking just helps us connecting digital out-of-home or public video with traditional online and mobile products. And I think cross-device in the online world is meanwhile just a normal thing. You want to target people no matter if they go on a piece of content through their mobile device or desktop or through their tablet. If you have the same piece of content on a public display, why not just integrating it into the strategy? But it requires seamless technological integration, and there's definitely a lot of complexity in there, but from a client's perspective, I think that's ultimately what clients want, everything on one technological platform, if it's technically possible. Roadside screens, it's an interesting topic because I said before that the large accounts in the national ad market is not the only source of business. And when we started with roadside screens 2 years ago, we were not really sure if we can cross-finance it in Germany because it required at that time 50,000, 60,000 euros per site, per screen. And on the basis of the existing price levels in German from national advertisers, there was no chance to get even near to that. So we had two strategic routes. One is going to the same advertiser as before and telling him that prices increased by 500%. It's still the same location, but sorry, we invest more capex, so please pay a higher price. And we immediately saw that it won't work. It's still the same location. Bad news for the advertiser, he shares the location with many others, and the price is increasing. That doesn't feel right, especially if you cannot do video advertising because of the regulation. So I change still on paper, where I am the exclusive advertiser, into a piece of, well, the same picture in digital, probably less quality, and I have to share the same location with 10, 15, 20 others. That doesn't make sense. So what we did is, while we built those screens, bottom up, so only city by city, not with a clear national plan, but rather city by city, and we started with really the smaller cities, and just were acquiring nothing but local advertisers. So really micro businesses. And my favorite is Metzgerei Kremers. It's a butcher from Cologne. His ad budget on the screens is 50,000 euros. I never thought that a butcher could make so much money that he's able to afford for so much money for advertising. But you could see that I think advertising in newspapers and freebie weeklies and telephone books and yellow pages is going backwards, but no one really comes to those small clients and is actively proposing alternatives to them. So they reduce the budget slightly, but they have no one who's giving them a nudge and say, try this and that, because Google and Facebook rather believe in do-it-yourself services. So that was one of the reasons why we were pushing our local sales force and focus on micro businesses, event and cultural businesses, medium-sized clients like fitness studios, car dealers, and have a completely different revenue structure on those sites. So funny enough, the best sites, best locations are digitized, and the advertisers on the best locations in Germany are not the Coca-Colas and the Volkswagens of this world. No, it's the butcher around the corner, because he sees the value and is willing to pay 5, 6, 7 times more money than the national advertiser. And as I said before, we've acquired 2 companies focusing on that signage market, because I think there the game is very often a different one, and you get more into performance-oriented mechanics. If you're able to activate people close to the point of sale, then you also need to get into different commercial models. That's why you need to understand more customer acquisition costs of clients and what they are willing to pay for the final activation at the POS per category. What we do, for instance, with our online sales house, and then bundle performance-oriented out-of-home at the POS with, well, CPO, cost per click offers in the online world. But the only reason why we understand that more or less was going into the online business and doing something we hadn't done before, just to understand how the mechanics and the price model work in other media categories. That's why we today, when we talk to investors, we always say that we want to become the most customer-centric, multi-channel company, because when we are very close to our customers, we understand their needs. And only on that basis we are able to dovetail and package and individualize our products and to understand in which category we need to go next just to be the most relevant partner for them. And a lot of that is probably blend of media owner and agency work, but for us it worked out very well. It's probably a very specific case. Not sure if you can replicate that internationally or globally, but it works in a market when the out-of-home media owner is very strong. It's very difficult to substitute him in that category. Then you have a good starting point also to diversify and go more into other areas that are also highly relevant for our customers. So in case you're still confused, hopefully at least on a slightly higher level. Thanks for your time.